Hey everybody. Yeah, I'm here to do something that, well, if you look at the title, you're going to be surprised to hear or see, and it's uncut, unscripted on the fly. But that is my review of Justice League Dark Apokolips War. Yes, I just saw it tonight, moments ago, while I was eating dinner. And to be honest with you, and I know one Frank Hill, with all due respect, man, you may be surprised by this, but I didn't skim through it. I didn't stop it and come back to it later. No, I watched the whole thing through while I was eating dinner. The only time I would ever pause is when I would try to focus on eating the turkey leg that I was having because, I had turkey tonight. One of those Jenny O like turkey bundles you get at the stores. So anyway, I was eating that, focusing, pausing the movie at times to focus on that, and as well as check up on what was going online. Check out what was going on social media. But majority of the time I sat through, I watched it from beginning to end, and yeah, I think what a lot of people say about Justice League Dark, I should say, Apokolips War. I think what everybody says about it, from Comics Explained to IGN, yeah, this is definitely a good movie. This is definitely a 5-star must-see movie because it is so good. Now, if you're a true hardcore comic book fan, now I admit I love comic books, there's no doubt. I have a bunch of DC, Marvel, Archie, Image, Dark Horse kind of comics all around, IDW. But I'm not as hardcore as, let's say a Linkara, a Lewis Lovehawk, or maybe a Bob Show, Rob Thomas, or even those at Comic Explained or Variant Comics, or maybe a Joe Vargas, Angry Joe. But I am a fan. I am a true fan. As a matter of fact, if you look in the background here, these two individuals right here, or these three figures here, represent two characters I grew up with mostly, that being Batman and Superman. And then, of course, I grew up with Wonder Woman as well. As a matter of fact, try to do this real carefully so the thing don't fall off. This is one of my Wonder Woman figures. I even have the big adult collectible one that they sold um, when they were promoting the movie. It's a big one. I don't think I can't get it out, but it's big. I'll probably try to take a picture of it, and you'll see it up here eventually. But yeah, I've been a fan of comics and comic book characters, iconic ones, for a long time. And even though I love the MCU, I grew up on Spider-Man, X-Men, and all that, even the animated series that were on Fox. I was mostly around DC characters. I mean, my late grandfather, obviously was a huge Superman fan, so obviously DC was the primary focus. One of the shows that I would watch growing up as a kid was the reruns of the 1960 Batman series. So I was raised mostly solely around DC. It would be after a while that I'd get into Marvel as I was growing up in the 80s, mid to late 80s, and all that. Because, long story short, when we would go camping at Lake Comanche here in California, my grandparents had this trailer and they had this little basket where they had comics. I don't know if it was just comics for them. It was just comics my grandpa had for himself, but mostly it was comics to keep the kids entertained in case they got bored. So there were Spider-Man comics in there, and I read them. So, um, so yeah, I was, so obviously I was a big fan of comics, growing up. Um, but anyway, long story short, I I enjoyed them. So when I heard that various movie studios, mostly like Warner Brothers, were doing these animated films, direct to video, these DTV, direct to video animated films based on their DC properties, of course I was all for it. In fact, the first one I got was Superman Doomsday, originally on DVD, and it came with the lithograph image that would go back and forth from the Superman logo to a bloody Superman logo or something like that. So yeah, I've been a fan of the DCs ever since. Now, have I collected every single one of them? No, not really. There are some that I still have to get a hold of. But over time, I've been able to get a hold of a majority of them, with a few exceptions here and there that probably down the line I will get. Like I didn't get the Green Lantern one. I didn't get any of the anthology. So I didn't get the Green Lantern one. I didn't get the anthology one. Some of the anthology ones, but the ones that I did get, kind of it kind of rounds out a majority of the library. Now there was one I did get back around 2013, 2014, only on DVD. This was like months before me and my family acquired a Blu-ray player, and basically, the DC movie I bought was Justice League Flashpoint Paradox, and little did I know until I looked it up online, and everybody's been talking about it recently because of this movie, that Justice League Flashpoint Paradox was the first in what is known as the New 52 continuity, or what would be known as the DCAMU, the DC Animated Movie Universe, which, according to Variant Comics in their review, is different from the DCAU, which is the DC Comics Animated Universe. The big difference, apparently, from what I understand, is the DCAU is meant for more original content, if not solo adaptations, or adaptations of solo stories that have nothing to do with the New 52, but have to center around stories of the past, like The Killing Joke, Gotham by Gaslight, Dark Knight Returns, stuff like that. Well, the New 52 centers around a lot of stories centered in that universe. And we all know how people felt about the New 52 when it came out. They were the New 52 basically got a lot of controversy because people were mixed about how fans felt about it. They were mixed about, people, liking this or liking that. So that's what this new continuity was about. That's what this new continuity was about. It was about basically, centering around those stories. And sometimes they would take stories that took place before the New 52, years, if not decades before, and incorporate them into the New 52 universe with their own little take on things. For example, a bit of spoilers here, but right off the bat, you have Superman acknowledging the cyborg Superman and the clones, or whatever, from Reign of the Superman, which was part of the two-part of the Death of Superman and Reign of Superman. That was their two-part adaptation of the storyline, and he basically acknowledges the cyborg Superman being part of Darkseid's work, being part of Darkseid, being sent by Darkseid. They what else do they bring up? They bring up the League of Assassins with Robin, and all that. So they do kind of touch upon other past events, other past continuity, other past events, other past movies that have taken place in this universe. Every movie, from since Flashpoint Paradox up to Justice League Dark Apokolips War, every movie, with a few exceptions, like I said, have every movie was referenced in a sense. Even the Wonder Woman Bloodlines story was referenced or touched upon. You have Justice League Dark and Teen Titans: The Judas Contract and Justice League versus Teen Titans touched upon in a major way here as well. The movie, so basically the movie, in my opinion, but basically getting to the movie is the culmination of so many things, of this entire universe. And depending on how you liked it or anything, whether you liked it or you didn't like it, it was the culmination. And the title Justice League Dark earns its title because it is a dark film. It is an R-rated animated film, and it holds nothing back. Nothing. Because, okay, here's what's interesting about this film. Here's what's interesting about it. We start off in the present. You know, we get this saying at the beginning that says something about change. You know, there's some things you can change, some things you can't change. So we get that. And basically, long story short, it immediately starts with Constantine in bed with Zatanna. And obviously they just had a night, if you know what I mean. But you could tell right off the bat that Zatanna is worried about something. Like, she knows something's going to happen. She could see something's about to occur that's not going to be good. And she's right on the money, because immediately after they get up from bed, they get a call from Batman over the intercom. The Justice League gets a call from Batman over the intercom to come to the meeting room, or come to the main room, the main meeting room. And they go there, and they find out exactly what's going on. They find out that Superman wants to end the war with Darkseid. He shows them that Darkseid has conquered all these other planets and everything, and it's all because something of Darkseid's appeared in the atmosphere, in the solar system, universal atmosphere, whatever. And basically, again, he just wants to put an end to it, and this is where he does reference. Just doing something there. This is where he does reference, basically, you know, the two-part Death of Superman, Reign of Superman, mostly the Reign of Superman with Cyborg Superman and everything, and how that was part of Darkseid's plan. They reference some other things as well. And it's not just the Justice League on Titan. It's not just the Justice League at the Justice Tower, if you will, in space that's meeting up. You see the Teen Titans at Titan Tower meeting up, and then you see Raven kind of struggling a little bit, which is a callback, I think, to Justice League versus Teen Titans and Teen Titans, the Judas Contract, where basically in her mind, if you follow comics, she has the spirit or the essence of her father chained up, which is Trigon, and he plays, in him trying to struggle to get free, it plays a huge part in the movie with Raven. Him trying to get free from Raven plays a huge part, a significant part throughout the movie. So anyway, they come up with the idea. So they basically, basically get to the point here. They come up with the plan to attack Apokolips, wipe it off the map, wipe out Darkseid and all that, prevent any more destruction or world taking from happening. But unbeknownst to them, Darkseid has hacked into, or at least I guess in the previous encounter in Justice League War, has hacked into Cyborg, into Victor, Cyborg, if you will. And he's using him sort of like a spy. Like he's basically spying on them, seeing what they're going to do. So he's spying on them, and basically, like I said, it's unbeknownst to them, because they think they're going to be a step ahead of Darkseid, but instead he's a step ahead of them, because he's seen what they're planning out. And basically, let's just say when they get going, they set up the boom tubes to go to Apokolips from Earth, from Earth's atmosphere to Apokolips. Once they use the boom tubes, basically, let's just say that's when everything goes to crap, because they notice an incoming barrage of something coming from Apokolips, and it's basically parademons, but they're not just average parademons. The Paradoom demons, or something like that. The Paradoomers, which are a mix of regular parademons and Doomsday. And then we kind of see like the souped up version of them 2 years later, because after these parademons, these super parademons, come in and attack, that's when we get the intro for the movie, which is we get the title and everything, and then it goes to 2 years later, and we see Constantine, I can speak here, at a bar slash pub, drinking his everything away along with this demon character. I can't think of his name right now. It's Aragon or something. And they're the only two. They hang out with each other, but the Aragon character is just drunk himself. Like he's just, there's no more challenge. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to fight for. So anyway, getting to the core here, Raven and Superman show up. They explain the situation. Constantine is still pissed at Superman for the fact that, hey, you led us into a bloody war. And, you know, this is where basically, you know, like I say, Constantine's still pissed at him. He's saying, you led us into a bloody war. And as they meet, of course, they get attacked by these parademons, who they dispense of real quickly. Then they meet up at what's left of London, a Big Ben, if you will, in London. And then that's where we get all the flashbacks as to what happened. Basically, we get some of the flashbacks to 2 years prior as to what happened, how everything went askew, went awry. And we see visions of characters getting just beaten to death, torn apart. I mean, they leave nothing out here. I mean, basically, it's balls to the wall, as much as I don't want to say that, but it is. It's balls to the wall with the violence you see. I mean, you see Shazam getting his leg torn off. You're seeing Aquaman getting torn to shreds. You see Mira getting her head crushed in like this. I mean, they don't hold nothing back. They hold nothing back. They even show how Superman got the green Superman insignia into his chest, which is basically liquid kryptonite to keep him toned down in his power. And then after that, you know, they ask, you know, what about you, Constantine? You know, you're one of the more powerful ones we have on the team. Why did you leave? Why did you run? And he says he doesn't know, because then we go flashback to the encounter him and Zatanna had with them, and we see Zatanna getting killed, and Constantine just running. Like he said, I don't know. Normally, I don't do that. So also later, so what they do later, so basically what they have to do after they kind of recall what occurred and what led them to this, is they have Constantine use a locator spell to find Robin, aka Damian Wayne, and they show up there and they find out where Damian's at is the League of Assassins. He's back at the League of Assassins. He's kind of the new leader. And I love this part, you know, as they're planning to go to Damian, you know, use the locator spell to go to Damian. You know, Constantine's like, well, it's going to take 10 hours, you know, I don't know. And Raven's just like, F it. And Raven's just like, enough. It's like, Raven, she's just not in the mood. She's like, F it. And uses a teleporter spell herself, you know, to go there. And Clark's like, whoa, wait a minute, you're too weak. And yet she does it, and it proves to be costly to her because it knocks her out. And again, like I said, they do meet up with the League of Assassins. They meet up with Damian. They meet up with Lady Sheila, who's in this as well. And you know, long story short, or to you know, getting to, hold on for a sec. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, after they meet up with the assassins and they get and explain the situation to Damian, who's basically pissed at Superman for what's happened, they are given a chance to rest. And Robin asks, or Damian asks Raven, how did you end up with Clark? Or teaming up with him, and she explains basically that with everybody dead, she just didn't want to be there no more. With Robin missing, she didn't want to be around. She wanted to end it. But that's when, you know, Clark stepped in and said, no, you know, you can't do this. So, fast forwarding, they all come up with a plan to basically infiltrate Apokolips and try to right the wrongs that have happened. And the only way they can do this is they need to get a team together a makeshift team that's going to help out. So what do? They meet up with Lois, who is in negotiations at Stryker Island with the leader of a certain faction that we all know of, that being the Suicide Squad, and the leader is Harley Quinn, who she actually beats sort of in a shoot fight, if you will. And because she beats her, Harley Quinn says, okay, you beat me fair and square, we got a deal. And we find out why Harley's now in charge of Suicide Squad, that Amanda Waller had died of cancer. She's laughing about it, and everybody's looking at her like, seriously, you're laughing about someone dying from cancer? And she's just like, hey, it's a weakness defense. It's a defense mechanism. So she's still Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is still herself, but, she does know when to take things seriously when the time is right. So, anyway, they gather everybody together. They come up with this plan to infiltrate LexCorp because that's where Boom Tube's at to get to Apokolips. Now, what's funny about this is we see what's happened, the end results. On the other side of things, we see the end results of Darkseid's victory 2 years prior. We see that Batman has basically been manipulated cybernetically or whatever into being his servant, almost like his lieutenant, second in command, if you will. And we see that LexCorp is like serving them as well. It's like he's fallen under the Darkseid's order, under Batman's order. But then we later find out that Lex, because Lois mentions she's getting information from a sleeper, from someone within that has info. And even to her surprise, we find out later on that individual is Lex Luthor, I should say. Thinking of the the wrestler with the similar name, but different. But yeah, basically Lex Luthor is the one, much to Lois' surprise, that's feeding her the inside intel of what's going on. But of course, Batman being Batman, even under Darkseid's influence, once he detects a Boom Tube activation from LexCorp, pieces the puzzles together, or puts the pieces, I should say, of the puzzle together and realizes, oh, you were against us this whole time. So anyway, they get to LexCorp, and of course you can't go to LexCorp without maybe someone dying or losing their lives and all that. And of course it's Lady Sheila. Lady Sheila ends up losing her life. You have Cheetah losing her life. I mean, here's what's funny though between those two. They give like a moment for Damian to kind of close the eyes of Lady Sheila and tell her to rest. Rest. And it's because she gets shot in the head and everything. That's how they kill her off. And he just closes her eyes like, rest, Sheila. Rest now, Sheila. And he closes her eyes. Cheetah comes in there and she literally gets blasted, boom, 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 like that. And that's it. That's all we see of her. But basically, yeah. They go into LexCorp. Batman, who's still under Darkseid's influence, not only detects or figures out that Lex has been spying on them for basically the resistance, if you will, but also realizes, okay, I see what's going on, and he sends parademons, or super parademons, paradoomers, if you will, to each of these hotspots where these magma tappers are, to take down these other heroes that have survived. Like you have Shazam with sort of a energized prosthetic leg. You have what's her name? One of Constantine's exes, Cora or something like that. There, you have a bunch of heroes, and let's just say, even though they succeed in trying to slow things down, in the end, just like 2 years prior, they get slaughtered. In fact, the last thing that happens in heroic effort is Shazam takes paradoomers with him by saying Shazam, and a big old explosion occurs. But yeah, basically, a lot of the heroes that went there to stop these things or shut them down, they get taken out. The only one that's successful, and even sacrificing himself to do so, is Swamp Thing. And it's Constantine that has to convinced Swamp Thing to do this by basically using his magic to telepathically beam like an image of himself, I guess you can say, an image of him um, to Swamp Thing to convince him, hey, look, if you don't help out in a way, this thing's going to take out what you care about the most, which is the Earth, more so than you think. And that's how Swamp Thing gets into the action, if you will. So, fast forwarding, we have the team on Apokolips. They show up on Apokolips. Again, Batman pretty much has figured out what's going on. He alerts Darkseid, he's just wiped out everyone on Aura, which is Oran, I think, which is the home of the Green Lanterns. He's just killed everybody, wiped them out. He's breaking necks, blowing off heads. And the only one that's still alive, but just barely, is John Stewart. And they try to give him a heroic moment, which doesn't end the way he wants, because he starts saying the Green Lantern saying by brightest, by August night, by brightest day, or something like that. He starts saying the Green Lantern saying of by darkest day and brightest night, kind of deal. And just as he finishes it, that's when you have this whole bunch of Earth magma get teleported by the orders of Darkseid, get teleported onto the planet and literally right onto John Stewart, who the next time you see him after that magma gets dropped, all you see is a skeleton, burnt skeleton that just blows away like dust in the wind. So we go back to Apokolips, and basically they're fighting everything off. They're trying their best to fight things, and they're trapped in this kind of like bridge-like area. We have all these lasers shooting down on them, and Raven puts up like this shield, this bubble shield, to try to protect them. And Trigon's telling her, daughter, let loose, trust me. In other words, he's telling her, let me take control temporarily, trust me on this. And she does. He takes control. They're able to, get by the lasers, literally destroy them. And Robin has to basically be there to try to snap her out of it, which he does, because when he goes to her, first you hear Trigon saying, I will kill you, boy, out of her mouth. And then it's Raven that finally takes control, like, basically say, that was my father. So anyway, we get to the conclusion of this, and we're seeing both sides of the spectrum. What's going on at LexCorp, what's going on in Apokolips. And we see basically Superman and the crew, Constantine, Superman, we see them encounter the new Furies. We see them encounter the new Furies, which is basically cybernetic versions of the friends, of the colleagues. Because basically we find out that through flashbacks that Superman had provided earlier, showing how things went awry, we see, like I said, we see him getting shot or lasered with that kryptonite liquid. We see Batman getting tortured or manipulated by Darkseid into being his lieutenant, if you will. And then, obviously, we don't see this on screen, because we do see her get her arm ripped off in the flashback, that being Wonder Woman. We see her arm get ripped off. I mean, literally, it gets ripped off. And we kind of see the end result of what happens to her, what happens to Mira, Hawkman, Martian Manhunter. Yeah, we see what happens. So we see basically what happens as a result. We see what happens to Wonder Woman, Mira, Starfire, Hawkman, Martian Manhunter. We see what's happened to them, and basically they've been turned into new Furies. They've been given cybernetics. Mira is given like a Naga-like body. Wonder Woman is just armored up all the way, except for like part of her face and all that. Yeah, like right up to here. We see that Starfire is completely just cybernetic, except for one part of her face and her hair. We see Hawkman's kind of gotten the same treatment. Martian Manhunter is somewhat the same way, but still retains his ability. That's the one thing about Darkseid's transformation on them is they still retain their abilities, their powers, and all that, although they're kind of manipulated by him. So anyway, it so anyway, they're fighting them and all that, and it takes Constantine to be the one that frees Wonder Woman from the control that Darkseid has on her. Because, first of all, she fights Aragon, who comes in, and he gets killed and then kicked into the fiery pits of Apokolips, and he's just happy about it. He's just happy he got a challenge even if he lost. Because that's how his character is. But then Constantine takes the opportunity to use his magic to cause the lasso of truth to wrap around Wonder Woman, and then he grabs a part of it and basically uses the magic he has and basically he combines his magic with the magic of the lasso of truth to basically break Darkseid's control on Wonder Woman. He's basically telling her, wake up or free yourself now, and by saying that, boom, the combined magic is enough for Wonder Woman to break free. She announces that who she really is and everything, and then kind of helps the heroes, escape by telling them where to go. So they go there, and she's basically left behind to fight the steel-controlled friends of hers, or allies of hers. And when they go to where they got to go, to like the power chamber and all that, they see it's Flash that's powering things. He's just hooked up to this device, and he's just like, and they're shocked, and he's all skinny and everything. He's just worn out. Superman is able to use the strength of the cybernetic suit that Lex Luthor gave him to stop the machine, break it down, and they're able to free Flash, Barry Allen. And Barry's just like, he can't even talk. He's like, he's barely, he can barely talk, basically. It's like he's trying to say what happened, why he was doing this and all that. And he's like, make it stop. And Constantine comes over to him and says, sleep, mate. Basically telling him to rest, rest up after what he's been through. And as he touches his head, he gets he gets these images in his mind and sees that Flash the whole time, Barry Allen, was telling the truth about the Flashpoint. That basically he's the reason this universe, this timeline exists. This is, why this universe, this timeline exists, is because if he doesn't go back to save his mom, Darkseid doesn't come, or something like that. He basically states that if he didn't go back to save his mom, Darkseid wouldn't have existed. Darkseid wouldn't be here. But because he went to save his mom, Darkseid's here, or something like that. So yeah, they pretty much find out finally that Flash has been taught. Flash mentioning the whole thing about the Flashpoint paradox has been true. That basically he's the reason everything's the way it is, because he wanted to save his mom. So anyway, basically they figure out that, okay, well, if Flash was the power source, there's no way of stopping Darkseid, but there is, and they go to the, and I think it's the same room or something like that, but then they find out in the same room that Victor's there, and Victor has been merged, Cyborg that is, with the Mother Wall, and basically Constantine is able to use what he calls techno magic to, as he put it, debug Cyborg and free him from Darkseid's control. So he frees him from Darkseid's control, and Victor kind of, I guess, brings him up to speed to what's going on. And as he does this, breaks, Cyborg free of Darkseid's control, debugs him. Basically, this causes the control, or the manipulation control that Darkseid has on the other Justice League members that now Wonder Woman is fighting, to break as well. and they are free once more. And you can kind of tell, even though they don't say anything, you can kind of tell that they're kind of in shock of what's happened to them, like they can't believe what they've been doing and all that. So yeah, basically, Constantine is able to free them. So Darkseid shows up. Batman, still under his influence, shows up. And basically we have a fight between Batman and Damian, or Robin, if you will. You know, and the reason we have the fight is because Batman saying all these things that are not of him. Even Raven says that's not Batman, that's Darkseid talking through him. And so we have this fight between the two. And just when it looks like Batman's got the upper hand, he's gonna kill Robin and all that, he gets this flashback to when his parents died, and he sees himself as a young child witnessing this, and then it flashes back to the present where he sees, I guess, Damian in that same position. And that's enough to snap him out of it and be like, because when Darkseid tells him to finish Damian, the moment Batman snaps out of it, he turns around, takes the sword and says, "Go to hell." Basically telling him, hey, you don't control me. And of course Darkseid's disappointed in this. Obviously he's disappointed in the fact that, okay, maybe my control, my manipulation over these heroes isn't as strong as he thought it was. And it takes certain magic or feelings or whatever. So he tries to blast Batman with his Omega Beam. Robin takes the shot and literally gets burnt to a crisp. I mean, he's not like whoosh into nothing like we see Dan Turpin in the Superman animated series, but literally Robin takes the hit to the point that he's just burnt. He's just barely alive. Raven is of course shocked by this, upset, even to the point that it's enough for Trigon to free himself. Raven tells Constantine, hey, he's freeing himself, do what you got to do now. And he takes this dagger that he showed her earlier that could be like a last resort to stopping Trigon, from taking over, even through Raven. And he uses it not to kill Raven, but he uses it and shoots it straight at the ruby or the diamond that is like the prison for Trigon. And he steps on it as he does this, and this puts the seal. And this, when he steps on the ruby or whatever it is, the jewel that is the prison for Trigon that was on Raven, he steps on it, and this causes the seal, that's magical seals, 6 paragains or whatever it's called, to show up, and or paradigm, I think, the 6 paradigm or whatever, to show up, and you see this big old black cloud in the shape of Trigon pop up, and Constantine's like, look, I just freed you. Basically Constantine's telling him, look, I freed you, so I'm the one you need. Take me. And I'm giving you a strong magical entity to be your host. That's what he's telling him. That's what he's telling me. He's saying, take me. He says, I think, some kind of wording that you need to say to make that happen. But Trigon's like, I've got a better idea, and instead takes his black X, his smoky essence, if you will, that represents him. And instead of going into Constantine, he goes into Superman. And by doing this, you kind of get like a super Trigon who basically, as soon as Constantine sees this, he's like, oh bugger. And as soon as he says that, Superman, or Trigon now in Superman's body, takes his neck and goes, just breaks it, just kills him. And of course this surprises Darkseid a little bit, like, he's wondering, what have you done, Kryptonian? And Trigon answers, I'm not him. I'm not who you think I am. And I think it kind of, to me, I think Darkseid knows of Trigon, but it doesn't really dawn on him at first. But he doesn't show it. But I think he kind of realizes, oh great. Well, not oh great, but he realizes, okay, now I've got to fight someone that's equal to, in equal power to me. Basically, that's the thing. So he's fighting this Trigon possessed Superman, and the Trigon possessed Superman is whooping his butt. To be honest with you, I mean, he's trying to fight back, but the Trigon Superman is just whooping his butt. He's just whooping his butt, and it's during this that that Batman converts a cyborg, like, okay, we need to come up with a plan, but we're going to need Constantine. We got to, come up with the plan, but we need Constantine. And you're wondering, why is he talking about Constantine? And Victor has to point out, yeah, that's a problem. That could be a problem, and he shows that Constantine's dead. And then we get a flash into Constantine's head, or basically some kind of... Well, basically what happens after Batman suggests that they got to come up with a plan, but they need Constantine, and Cyborg Victor points out, oh yeah, that's going to be a problem, showing that Constantine's dead. We kind of flash into, I guess, heaven, because that's how Constantine calls it. And he sees Zatanna there. And Zatanna is, they're happy to see each other. Constantine even acknowledges, well, I guess I bought the farm, but he even wonders, how the heck did you get me up here into heaven? And Zatanna's like, I pulled a few strings. But anyway, long story short, Zatanna mentions that, yeah, the reason you ran away instead of saving me, that was kind of me. I kind of made you do that. And Constantine's like, it finally dawns on him, like, a compulsion spell. Yeah, and Zatanna's like, yep, because, we needed a backup or something like that. And I think all the pieces come together, not only when, Constantine figures out why, finds out what caused him to run off instead of save Zatanna, which was a compulsion spell, but then he also figures out, oh, it was Batman that made the suggestion you do that. And that's when Zatanna basically acknowledges, yeah, Bats kind of knew that something might go awry, might blow up in our face, so he told me to do this to you because you'd be a last resort. And sure enough, he is. And it's at the same time that Raven's cuddling Robin, who has died, who died in Batman's arms. She's holding him. She tells him she loves him. Tears fall from her eyes, and I guess that's enough to cause this big magical aura to appear. And you see this big old magical orb or aura envelops both of them, and all of a sudden you see this big old, I wouldn't say it's a raven, but it looks like a white phoenix just emerge, like a phoenix-like bird. I mean, I guess it's a white raven, more representing good, but it's like a phoenix just rising from the ashes. And this is happening at the same time where Zatanna says, yeah, we can't be together right now, John, but we will soon. And as soon as they kiss, this and everything, that's when the magic, I guess it's supposed to happen simultaneously, but that's when both magics occur, and lo and behold, both Robin is brought back to life, and he even looks at Raven, and I think Raven, after she kind of brings him back, kind of sees that her outfit's different. It's kind of like it purified, because basically I think what happens is she has to emit love and everything to purify herself, to be like that raven, the white raven or phoenix that rises from the ashes. And then, like I said, Robin looks at her and it's like, you saved me. You saved me. And she's like, she basically tells him she had to try. Constantine comes back at the same time. I'm basically acknowledges how he, hates, time travel or whatever it is, some kind of flashpoint. He just acknowledges he acknowledges he doesn't like what's going on, or something that that has to deal with it. And he basically looks at Batman and says, yeah, you and I have got to talk. You and I got to talk later. Basically explain to him, yeah, because you can only wonder if maybe this was off screen or this was in a panel in the original comic, but that I guess this is based on. But you can only imagine Constantine taking Batman aside and saying, yeah, yeah, Bats, next time you come up with a backup plan, let us in on it. You know, come on, think about it. You put yourself in Constantine's shoes. You come back from the dead after your girlfriend tells you why you really why you really ran off and all that, only to find out it's all part of a plan. You'd be a little pissed too, and you'd want to basically probably tell the guy that did that or came up with that to probably let you in on it next time. Like, yeah, next time you come up with a backup, let us in on it so we know what to do, or whatever. But anyway, it's doing all this that we also go back to LexCorp, and basically everybody is just, you see, you see everybody's fighting everybody, fighting all the parademons. Uh, you're seeing Black Manta getting ripped apart. You're seeing Luthor get thrown down into a dead parademon spike and getting killed. And basically, this is when Lois realizes, well, this is it. And I love how this moment where she's like, okay, I got to talk to Clark before this happens. Let him know one last thing. Kind of communicate with him one last time. And I kind of like what happens because it harkens back to what Harley says before this. She says, it's time for the Suicide Squad to live up to their name, or to earn their name. So anyway, Lois sees that there's not enough time to get out and everything, so she contacts Superman on the armor that Lex gave him, sees Bruce answer instead, surprised to see him after, what's been going on. They have Victor teleport or telecast or broadcast the communication all across the room, where Superman still possessed by Trigon sees it, and he's breaking free a little bit when he sees that. And it's basically Lois saying goodbye because she knows she's not going to make it out. She tells Superman, Clark, to be strong and all that. She tells him basically be strong, be who you are, da da da. And literally, she says she loves him. Boom! LexCorp blows up. And this is enough for Superman to break free of Trigon's control, but in the process is able to retain his powers. He gets his suit back. The liquid kryptonite is gone. He's back to full strength. And just when Darkseid thinks, okay, because here's what happens: Superman breaks free of it. Darkseid takes the opportunity to trap Trigon in this little ball, and just when he thinks he's got the upper hand, all of a sudden, you see Superman's shadow just cast over him, and Darkseid just turns around and like, you. In other words, he's like, in other words, when he says you, and because he notices it's Superman, you have to think that in his mind it's like, beep, like, excuse my language, God, but it's like, shit. Because again, it's like everything he planned 2 years ago that was successful is now backfiring. So, to get to the conclusion here, because I know this is probably going longer than some people expect. But to get to the conclusion, they realize Victor comes up with a solution that the only way this is all gonna come to an end is Apokolips and Darkseid and the paratroopers or Doomers, whatever, have to all be gone. They have to be destroyed. Right? Just like Superman wanted 2 years ago. But since he's now connected to the mother box or the mother wall, he's able to draw the paratroopers back to Apokolips. He's able to open the portals and basically transport them back or bring them back. And this is when they come up with the idea that instead of leaving Superman behind, they're going to fully release Trigon. So you have Raven and you have Constantine together, because Raven's like, at first like, you're kidding, right? But then it dawns on her, hey, that's a good idea. So they use the combined magic to free Trigon, and Trigon proceeds to take Superman's place in fighting Darkseid. And this is enough of a distraction that allows Victor to open up the portal, the boom tube, back to Earth. And Cyborg's like, look, I can't go with you because I'm stuck like this. He even mentions that beforehand, that he's stuck like this. He's integrated too much into it. And basically, we do get one heartfelt moment we get a heartfelt moment with Raven and Trigon, because Trigon, as he's fighting Darkseid, saying, "What a wonderful gift you have given me, daughter. Be well." And she looks up at him sadly and says, "Goodbye, father," and walks through the portal. And the last thing we hear out of one of the Justice League members, which is Cyborg, saying, because he realizes, well, I'm stuck here, so I'm gonna have the last word. And he says, "Suck it, bitches." And then that's when the big old boom big old boom portal opens up. Darkseid sees what's going on and realizes, oh crap. No, it's like, oh crap, this can't be. Because again, like, he's realizing everything he's succeeded at is now backfired. And so basically, you have Trigon grab onto him and pull, because Darkseid's going to try to escape, but Trigon, he's just like destruction and all this. This guy's like, "Oh, this is fun. I'm taking you with me." Whee! So Trigon gets sucked in there, and he takes Darkseid with him. All of Apokolips just gets blown up as it enters the portal, and then what's left of it gets sucked in, and that's it. And Cyborg sacrifices himself because, again, he can't leave. He's stuck. He's trapped. So the ending basically is you have all the heroes left on the planet, looking at what's happened, looking at basically the remnants of what's occurred. We have Batman basically show up and tell them that even though they succeeded in taking out the magma tappers, even though they kind of stopped the magma tappers, they didn't stop them in time from getting down to the Earth's molten core, and that basically, because they didn't successfully stop the magma tappers fully, that the Earth's core is now compromised. The molten lava, 30% of it, is compromised, and that he predicts, if not estimates, 1 billion more deaths before they can get anything under control. And Superman says the line that we hear in the trailer. He says, "Well, look, I know we've been all through hell." Well, we don't hear that line in the trailer, but he does say the line afterwards. But we're the Justice League. Basically, what Superman says is, I know we've all been through hell. Oh, but we don't quit. The Justice League don't quit. And that if they work together, they can find a way to save the planet. And when Constantine's hearing all this, and he looks down and he flicks away his cigarette that he was smoking, and he looks down at Barry and says, "You know what you have to do, mate." And Barry's like, and Barry, Flash, realizes as well. He's like, "Another Flashpoint." And he mentions Iris and says, after Iris died, he says, "I promised after Iris died that I." And at first he's, because at first, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to have to reverse things or kind of alternate things again that could cause him not to have his mom around anymore. So, long story, but anyway, Constantine is able to convince him, because even Flash is like, he's like, "Even if I do it, everything will change again." And Constantine has to assure him that, yeah, things might be shanked, if you will, or shanked, or whatever. And, we may all make the same mistakes again. But whatever happens, or whatever the result is, will be a heck of a lot better than what we got right now. And right there, that line where he says, whatever happens will be a lot better than what we got right now. Because what you see is all the characters as still the way they are as a result of what's going on. I mean, you see, Mira kind of down like this a little bit, knowing what's happened to, Aquaman. And you have the little dog, and the dog, I think it's Damian's dog, putting his head on her, like he understands, he can sense that. You have basically Starfire, Cora, holding Dick Grayson, Nightwing, who we find out dies in the flashback that Damian tells us about. But then he opens up this like little window on the door, and shows that Damian's still alive. Well, not Damian, but Dick Grayson, Nightwing, is still alive, but he's not himself anymore because, as Raven points out, you used the Lazarus pit when you said you wouldn't. So yeah, he uses the Lazarus pit to keep Dick alive because Dick's his brother, or it's like a brother to him. So anyway, getting to the conclusion, basically, like I said, we see them. We see, like I say, Starfire holding, Dick because of their relationship together. We see Damian and Raven together. So basically, after Constantine tells Flash, hey, heck, whatever happens is gonna, whatever the end result's gonna be of you doing this again, of you wiping the slate clean, it's gonna be a lot better than what we got now. It's enough for Flash. It's enough to convince Flash to do it. He does. He gets on his knees, gets on his feet just like he did before, and boom, takes off. And the next thing you know, you see all the power, lightning, electricity go all around him, and he just poof, takes off until you see this big old boom, white flash of light enveloping everything. And it, as it envelops everything, we see all the characters just staring off, knowing what's about to happen, ready to accept it. You see Raven and Robin kissing, finally kiss each other. As a way of probably acknowledging not just further acknowledging the love for each other, but also the fact that, this could be the only kiss they have between them, because whatever the new reality will be, they may not fall in love in that reality. They may fall in love with other people. So, yeah, basically the movie ends with everything completely whiting out, and that's it. And it takes about 30 seconds before it fades to black to go to the credits to kind of let everything sit in or settle in with the viewer of what just happened. And overall, it's like I said, it's actually a pretty good film. In the end, it's actually a pretty good film. I do recommend watching it if you've not seen it yet. I know you're probably thinking, well, you spoiled it. Not entirely. I just kind of pinpointed a few things here and there, so I do apologize if I did. But like I said, it is definitely worth watching. And if you've collected all of the movies in the DCAMU that connect with it, it's worth your time. It is worth your time because everything comes to culmination. Everything starts making sense. Like, as strangely as it sounds, it makes sense. Like I said, you have, at the beginning, you have Superman bring up the cyborg Superman in Reign of Superman, in the Reign of Superman movie, as being part of Darkseid's plans and all that. So it's really, it really starts connecting and really starts connecting and answering some questions that you may have had after some movies occurred in this continuity. So now the question is, what's next? Well, we do know that the next animated film from DC is Superman Man of Tomorrow. Now, we don't know if this is going to be the first in the rebirth continuity, which will be the new continuity for the DCAMU, or will this just be its own standalone thing that will be part of the DCAU? We'll have to wait and see. But if it's the first in the rebirth continuity, and what I would assume is going to be the DCAMU 2.0, or the DCARU, which is DC Animated Rebirth Universe, or the DC Rebirth Animated Universe, which could be DCRAU, which would make sense. The DCRAU. We'll have to, like I say in a lot of my videos, we'll have to wait and see. But really, just check out the film. I think you guys will like it, and that's all I'm going to say, guys. So till next time, take care. God bless. Again, check out this film. You'll enjoy it. And I am out. Peace.